Welcome back to today's episode of Perspective, the action-packed youth debate show. And we have two very strong teams today who are debating on a very controversial topic of experimentation on humans. Now, what this covers is things like genetic engineering, developments for military purposes, and things such as cloning and choosing specific genes if someone wants their baby to have specific characteristics. So this covers many sort of areas in science, so you can see why it's very controversial, because we've got loads of ethical implications. So yeah, we've been debating it so far. We've had our first segment where we've had speeches coming from both teams. So we have free thought, who are against the topic, and we have the thinkers who are debating for. Now we enter our second phase of today's show, and in this phase what we have is both teams are going to be giving opening statements, and we're going to see how the other team can respond, and we're going to go back and forth from that point onwards. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask team free thought to first give one of your opening arguments, their statements, and we're going to see how the thinkers can respond.
So genetics, they could harm humans, like in some sort of way, like say when the legs get cut off, say like the experiment of getting the legs back gets like dysfunctioned, and then they might get diseased or something, or get more like disease.
Yeah, okay, so the experimentation which is carried out on humans in order to achieve the results which scientists want, there's many risks to it. Humans can either die, they can be affected, it can ruin their life in some sense, it can give them a lifelong disease. So how would you respond to that? So Ibrahim, what would you like to give a response?
Firstly, like the drugs and genetic engineering, like things that will help people get their legs back, as you gave the example, they'll obviously be tested first, and every drug has they have side effects, like anything from I've been saying paracetamol through the whole thing, but like even that can give you headaches and cramps and stuff. So if you think about it, there's no medicine that doesn't have a risk. So you obviously first they will obviously be tested, because currently it's illegal, and if it was made legal, then we'd obviously have to go through a lot of drug trials, and it would have to be tested thoroughly before it's allowed to go out. So I think it would come to a point where the way you're saying it, like they will get diseased and stuff. That probably won't happen, or it'll be a very small chance.
Okay, so Ibrahim has just said that no drug is perfect, and no development process of a drug is perfect. There's always going to be side effects and issues arising during the development. So that is a given, that's expected during these processes. So how would you respond to that?
And the problem is there though, that you're talking about paracetamol, but paracetamol's like it's a tablet drug. We're talking about human genetic modification on humans, and that if you test there, then there's obviously going to be more problems there than if you take paracetamol and you get a coma or something. So there's more risks during human trials with genetic.
Okay, so someone swallowing a tablet with a glass of water is not the same as someone being shoved into a lab and being experimented on. So can you really actually compare those two?
But with all major surgeries, there are risks. Like for heart surgery, for example, that's, I'd say, on the same level as trying to grow back an amputated limb using genetic engineering. But then that I'd say that still has risk, but that still works, and loads of people are being saved through heart surgery. So then if we don't know until we try. And then you're saying that, but then think about when antibiotics were first made. Everyone would probably think, oh, well, they're putting inside their body, but then obviously antibiotics have saved many lives now. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so you guys keep on coming back to the idea of risk and risk to humans, but surely with risk there is reward. So what would you say to that? You guys have a response for that? No? Isa? Okay, Okay, I think I'll call an end to that string of debate. So we can see the idea of risk coming forward, but then the idea of, if you don't try something, how would you know about how it ends up or how it turns out? So I asked Free Thought to give their opening statement first. So now I'm going to come to the thinkers. Can I ask one of you guys, please, to give one of your opening statements?
Okay, so genetic engineering can help paralyzed people walk again. What's your thought on that?
Okay, so the whole work that goes on through genetic engineering and such experimentation of humans, just as an example, it can lead to a paralyzed person being given the ability to walk again, which is a big thing in their life. So are you saying that you're against that? You have a response for that?
No, I'm not against that, but as we said before, that it's always going to be a risk that you could say someone's paralyzed and then you could put, they could give you...
Near the mic, close to you.
If you, to do these modifications, genetic modifications, say on a paralyzed person, it takes up a lot of money to do them, and doing them, and if you give up a lot of money, and it might not work as well, so not only are you losing your money, you're also losing your future life as well, and which could affect you really badly as well. Yeah.
So we can see what Isa is saying is that there's both a social risk and an economic risk as well. A lot of money is spent on such experiments and experimentation in order to cure things such as paralysis, and in the whole process of genetic engineering, and it might not work. So are you saying that it's okay to put a person's life at risk and at the same time risk billions and billions of dollars?
Well, isn't it like an organ donation? When someone's died, you use their organs to give it to someone else. You can use their genes to make a person that has their life already at risk, and it could help their life, and it won't affect the person that's just got their genes taken out.
Okay, so you don't always have to use genes or do such experimentation on a living person. It can be done on the dead as well. You said the whole idea of risk a person, but he said that they have things such as being a donor anyway, so people do risk their lives anyway, giving away kidneys and organs such as that, and also many times a dead person has their organs taken out. So wouldn't you say that since people are doing it anyway, if people are willing to risk their lives in that sense, that maybe they're willing to do it in this sense, and maybe even from dead people you can get some sort of information from their body and they won't have any effect on them?
That they would put
Hold the mic close to you.
when they are taking the organ, they would have to search properly if there's no disease or anything, and then they would put it onto into the sick person, and then that would be a less risk, because there's not economically, it's not taking a lot of money, and it's not putting as much of a risk than doing a genetically modified, because they've actually made sure that the organ that they are choosing to donate is well for the person.
Okay, Ibrahim?
You talk about like organs not being economically, like being quite cheap economically, but you can take genes from simple spit, a plucked hair, which is worth much less to a person than a whole kidney or a liver or something like that, which could actually affect their lives. And then also, having genes, obviously they're done in a lab with a microscope, and organ donation, because there's so less people willing to donate, there's obviously a shortage of organs. But with genes, everyone can pluck out a hair and donate it to help another person with their healthy genes or whatever, if we're doing gene replacement or donation or whatever. Yes, what did you say to that?
Oh, okay, it's getting a bit heated. Yeah. So the whole idea of obtaining genes from someone's DNA, it can be done very quickly through someone's spit or getting someone's hair. But with organs and donations, there is almost always a very, very long waiting list, which puts the person who's waiting at even more of a risk, because they're waiting, for their chance effectively to live, and they could die during that time. So do you have a response for that? So Sakib?
It could get donated from dead person, as Mahdi said, it doesn't always have to be from a live person. It could also be done by people from the grave and stuff.
Okay, so I think I'll call an end to that stream of debate. So yet again, we're seeing some very strong ideas, and the whole idea of risk coming back into it. And we've heard a bit about money now as well, how it's not a risk just for the person's life, but a lot of money is spent on such experimentation. But we've had some very good responses from Ibrahim, so well done to you. So now I'm going to ask Team Free Thought again. Can I ask you guys to give yet another opening statement / argument that is different from the first one that you gave?
So experimentation on human genetic modification with babies, it's not right to choose how your baby looks and stuff. It should be a surprise or a gift from that, how your baby looks like and everything. You shouldn't be able to do that and try and make the child smart. It loses the free will of the child to when it grows up, that for it to become smarter and everything and stuff like that. And that although you could have a child that's really healthy, but then as it grows up it could get sick as well.
Okay, so the natural process of birth and offspring being born, and its development of characteristics that it's got from both its parent, it creates a variation within the species. But when you start specifically giving characteristics to a baby, and giving it specific characteristics for a purpose such as military purposes or making it smart, is that actually right? Is that ethically right? Should we be doing that? Shouldn't it remain a natural process that it is?
Well, if a child was born with an illness or something, you'd rather have it born with traits that is not right than have it suffer from an illness for the rest of its life. So yeah.
Okay, so many babies can be born with illnesses which last them their whole life and put them through immense pain. So surely the idea of giving a born baby a happy life where it's not feeling pain outweighs the whole idea of letting it be a natural birth.
Yeah, but if you think about it, it's not the parent's choice if the child is going to endure the disease for the rest of his life. It's the child's choice if he wants to. Yeah.
Okay, so the child might enjoy the disease. I don't know, but the idea is, in the past, I think what he's trying to say is, in the past, many people have been born with such diseases, and they've gone through their life, and everything's been okay. So is there really a need to change that now?
For most people, if they could choose over being healthy or ill, I think everyone would much rather choose to be healthy. And if a parent can stop their child from going through such pain, I think every parent would do that. And if they can do that even before birth, with using gene therapy for IVF, I think every parent would take that chance. And I think it would save a lot of people's lives as well, because genetic diseases, they cause a lot of early deaths. So as the host was saying, but back in the days, they would probably have died very early, even if they were to survive or be able to live a normal life.
Okay, so you guys have been arguing throughout the course of the second phase about the whole idea of life and how you're going to risk losing life. But surely if you let a baby be born with a disease, you are risking life in that sense. Can I just ask you to quickly give a response and then we can move on?
If a baby has an illness, you could find a cure other than genetically modifying the baby or experimentation.
Okay.
Yeah, it could make the baby more ill. Whereas if the baby has an illness, that it may have an illness on them, but it could have a long life. But if you do the genetic modification, it could make them even more ill than they already are, which might make them have a short life.
Okay, so there are alternative cures other than looking into genetic engineering. Okay, so that brings an end to our second phase of today's show. So we've seen some very heated debating going on between both teams, some very good points that are coming up. So the next phase is the judges round, and that is probably the toughest part of the show. But before we go there, we're going to have a very, very quick break.